Hi, my name is Emily and I'm a faithful follower of Christ, and I really wasn't planning on making this video, but here I go. I think I could sum up December as the month of denial, and it has been fascinating to me. So fascinating the way the Lord has allowed me to take everything I've learned for 3 years about addiction, about sugar, about carbohydrates, about insulin, about dopamine downregulating, about dose-dependent hepatotoxins, about drugs, about all of it. About insulin spiking and fat storage and ketosis and all of it, especially everything about addiction. And he just let me like set it all aside and just like, you know, Mom, if you hear this, I am gonna use this example, and I hope you don't mind, but I remember after my dad had his stroke, I kept, you know, my dad was not the same, obviously, but we all had high hopes that that he would recover. We heard 9 months, 90%, 9 months, 90%. So that's what we were shooting for. But he wasn't the same. The stroke affected his basal ganglia. He was very, very emotional, and he just was partially paralyzed. It was very, very difficult, and he needed help with everything, and he would cry a lot. I mean, it was just, his brain was so affected. And I remember asking my mom, do you miss him? And she was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why would I? He's right here. What do you mean? Why? And she was just like in go mode. My mom raised 4 kids. She's been in go mode for decades. Go. Hit the ground running. No time for questions. Just get to work. And she would roll up her sleeves and just care for my dad. And months and months and months after he passed, she was like, oh, now I see what you mean. Did you miss him? Because from the time he had his stroke until the time he passed 4 months later, she had not really been with the man that she had been with for 40 years since the day before the stroke. So anyways, I'm very fascinated by how the Lord protects us at times and allows us to have like momentary, temporary times of just an unawareness, or it's sanity saving. I think that was how my mom got through when things were that rough with my dad, by thinking everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, and everything's going to be fine, and we're going to get through this, and we're just going to keep going. This past month, I took down the 2-hour video that maybe a couple of y'all saw. That was 2 hours of complete baloney. It was me processing through such a far-fetched last-ditch effort to allow sugar and flour to be part of my life with good intentions, meaning I thought I had a pretty good... Okay, that's better. I was very distracted by my lipstick. Oh, Clara bought me this new lipstick from the Santa shop at school. Anyways, and I've been eating beef all morning, so I was down to nothing but, like, you didn't know this, but I was looking at my face in this screen thinking, I look like I've been eating beef. Now, I look like I put some of this on. Where were we? It was with really good intentions that, and honestly, I thought I had a very good thing going with my thought process there. But December denial, it's been a whole big month of denial. It's like, for the sake of sanity, the Lord, let me take my brain and just remove it from my body for a while and take everything that I've learned and everything that I've experienced and throw it all out the window and think that I could, if I chose to be, a moderator and not an abstainer. And maybe he did that because things have gotten hairy lately with the adoption and the boy's biological mother and everything that we have going on personally. Christmas, enough said. Am I right? We were flying in and out of this house. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I was going to say, I'm just so glad my whole house doesn't look like my bedroom. But I'll show you. We have a new dog too. We're fostering a dog that I recently found. Half German Shepherd, half Siberian Husky. I just found him at this guy's house, and he was in a tiny pen running around in circles, and I was like, I prayed about it, and I was like, oh Lord, let me off this hook, and he would not. So I followed the Lord's guidance and direction, and I knocked on the guy's door and asked him if he'd like to bring that dog to the farm sometime. Better. I asked this guy if he'd like to bring the dog to the farm sometime to run around, or if it was okay with him if the kids and I took the dog for a walk every once in a while. I don't know. I always approach these things very, like, I don't want to be offensive. You know, I'm just like, hey, I noticed you got a big, beautiful dog out there, and I know they have a lot of energy. I've got a bunch of big dogs of my own. And anyways, the guy could not have been nicer, and we kind of knew each other through different people. And he was like, you can have the dog if you want it. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. So here we have this big Siberian Husky. It's like the Lord knew with everything I have going on. He just let me, and Jill too. Jill, it's been amazing, hasn't it? He let Jill and I take everything that we know and like convince ourselves that that what we know to be true wasn't true. And so for a few weeks, I told myself, in an effort to not binge anymore, I'm going to let sugar and flour trickle into my life on purpose. Very much like a if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And so that was that 2-hour video where I was just totally explaining and justifying how I was going to have sugar and flour in my life, and how I'd rather it trickle in than have the levee break and have me binge. And you know what? That was all good and well for a few days. And I was writing down on my calendar. It's like hilarious. I'll show you. It's ridiculous. Let me see. I don't even want to get up. Okay, see my little calendar there? Okay. Anywhere you see a red X is where I only ate carnivore. Anywhere you see a paragraph is where I had sugar and flour. And okay, a little bit one day was okay, and then a little bit the next day was okay. And by a little bit, I mean like an ice cream cone, a couple cookies. Nothing like a painful, very, very expensive binge in a parking lot somewhere, which I've done numerous times. But what happened was, over about a 4 or 5 day period, these substances built up in my system enough that I ended up in a terrible depression. It lasted like literally 3 hours, but I'm very familiar with depression, and if you are, then you know what I'm talking about. It is, people think depression is sadness. It's not. Depression is a nothingness. Depression is no emotion. Depression is being aware that you're just like a shell of your body and there's nothing. There's no sadness. It's so horrible. It's especially, my experience, it's especially terrible being around small children when you're like that, because you know they're perfectly innocent. They're so sweet. They have so much to share. They have funny things they're trying to tell you. They want your reaction. They need you. And you're just like, get away, get away, get away, get away, because I cannot even function. And being around you makes me aware that my brain's not working, because I don't care about what you're saying. I don't care. I just want to be alone in a room. It's awful. So I recently listened to a video where I'll attach it below. It's just this great 4-minute video about inflammation and how inflammation is either chronic or it's either acute or chronic. So acute inflammation would be a bee sting, but chronic inflammation is going to be from our diet, something like that. That's like long lasting, and it's hard to detect because it builds up over time. Now, how wonderful that I've eaten carnivore long enough, or should I say zero carb. That's my new perspective on things, because I eat mayonnaise, and mayonnaise is not from an animal. The eggs are, but the oil's not. And by the way, I only eat Primal Kitchen. Get the good stuff. Do not. Okay, do if you want to, but soybean oil. Poo on soybean oil. So I've been eating this way long enough that I've healed quite a bit. And I have very little tolerance now for what I once had. And I was very sensitive to these substances that built up in my body over the past, it was a couple weeks ago now, but it was over the course of 4 or 5 days. So again, like an ice cream cone, maybe a couple crackers. It was like, you know what, I'm just going to have a little bit every day, and I'm going to let it trickle in instead of like having the levee break and the floodgates open. And no, that did not work. That did not work. Which, by the way, I was like obsessing about it. Like, you know, what am I going to get? Where am I going to get it? What's going to be my little bit today? It was just like so much mental. I hate to like be so cliche and call it mental chatter, but it's an obsession. I also took down CarniVLOG 37, where I was like, hey, I'm going 80-20. To be honest, this was my attempt at trying to not binge anymore. Okay, 80-20, before I had decided on 80-20, which means, and y'all, this is laughable, just, I'm telling you, God let me take my brain and just like remove it for 3 weeks. And it reminds me of what I witnessed my mom do after my dad's stroke, like I said a minute ago, where God just sort of shielded me from life there for a while. The kids, the dogs, so much. It was like, you know what? I'm just gonna not be trying to figure out my diet right now or analyze my behaviors right now. But I had come up with a 95-5. 5% of 365 is 18. I was kind of 18 days a month, or excuse me, a year, that I let myself have sugar and flour. That's roughly 1.5 times, or on average 1.5 times per month. I could not make it until like the next Sunday. Now, keep in mind, the whole time Karen and I are still doing our 200 days of nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. But she is so awesome. She's such an awesome partner that she just let me. Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs was like the path we were on. There were sometimes we'd fall off and come back, like hit the rumble strip on the side of the road. But then there's other times I'll speak for myself, I would just choose to put my blinker on and turn off that path. And then I always came back to it. That 200 days, which we've finished now. They finished last Sunday, December 18th. That was my lighthouse. I just kept coming back to it. But I thought, okay, I'm going to let myself have 18 days a year. So like my birthday, Greg's birthday, I'm going to let myself have sugar on these days. Now, this is no different than an alcoholic saying, I'm going to let myself have alcohol on these certain days. A cocaine addict, I'm going to let myself have cocaine on these certain days. How do you think that went? Perfectly well to teach me that's absurd. So that experiment went fantastic. I learned a lot. And I learned that, lo and behold, this is not a math problem. If it were, I would have crunched some numbers and figured it out a long time ago. So I went 95-5, and then before I could even make it to like the next Sunday, here comes Saturday, and I was like, Saturday the Sabbath, right? We're supposed to rest, right? We're supposed to just chill. I've been working hard all week. I'm going to add 52 days to those 18. 52 Saturdays a year. So I get 52 Saturdays plus 18. That's 70. That's 80-20. It just worked out. The numbers worked out great. I thought 80-20, that's pretty darn good. And you know what? That's a whole lot better than 50-50. That's a whole lot better than 10% carnivore and 90% sugar and flour. You all, the 95.5, the 18 days a year turned into 70, turned into 365 in a flash, in a heartbeat. I couldn't make it 2 weeks before I was like, you know what? I'll just have a little every day. It was in my system, and I was becoming dependent on it again. Dependent on it for not true energy, but for stimuli. To get me up out of that bed when I'm trying to take a nap, to be at the school by 11 so I can volunteer, so I can play and be happy, and oh my gosh, and just like so much childcare, right? So I took down the 2-hour video. I took down CarniVLOG number 37. I have humbly prayed to the Lord for conviction around all this. I see it for what it is. It's a commitment that I'm ready and willing to make. And I've done something that I think is going to help me immensely. I've gotten to the point where I really was only, unless I was binging on sugar, I was really only eating beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, some brisket. And I wasn't even getting them from fast food restaurants anymore, because I started to notice that, you know how when you eat a burger from your house, if you leave it on the plate or you look in the skillet, there's the white beef tallow, if it cools off. You get stuff like that from fast food. You're not going to see that. It's going to look like watery oil, which tells me it must be 100% beef, but they're cooking it in that soybean oil. I don't know. Just the whole thing started to gross me out. And I'm very fortunate. We butcher our own cows, so we have the most delicious beef here under my roof. And my brain lights up. I can honestly tell you, I'm as addicted to restaurants as anything. So my brain lights up at the thought of going out to eat. So I thought, I'm just going to eat from home. That's what I'm doing now. I just eat from home. Probably my number one trigger environment where I really let my guard down is my mother-in-law's house next door. So many times a year she makes a big beautiful spread with desserts and everything, and when we go up there, it's like she's taking care of the kids and we're not, and we can just relax. And then I relax right into the food, and then I have to relax the button on my pants because it has such a horrible effect on my weight, and my weight was up. And anyways, I realized God has really brought me through so much in the month of December, and I realized that part of why I've not been committing to this is out of fear of failing over and over and over and over again. And I remember recently I heard a guy say he didn't want to get married, not because he was scared of being with the same person for the rest of his life, but because he was scared of failing. He took it so seriously that he didn't want to even attempt to commit because he was so scared of failing. And I always take a good look at fear. I don't ever want to be motivated by fear. I tell people, don't run away from something. Make sure you're running towards something. Whether it's a bad relationship, or, if you're just running away, you might run into something even worse. So instead of looking behind you, fearfully running away from something, you need to be looking forward. Where are you going? That just applies to life, all sorts of facets of life. And anytime I feel fearful, I really examine that, because the only thing I want to have a fear of is the Lord, literally. And as He directs me to have very healthy and appropriate fears of things like getting bit by a dog or falling off a cliff. Yes, those are healthy, appropriate, rational fears. I realized I have been fearful of my own behavior lately. I've been fearful of binging, and I've jokingly said many times on this channel, I've never been diagnosed with a few different things, but I don't care to be, because I've been diagnosed with a bunch. Well, guess what? If we all took 1,000, Jill, thank you for this. If we all took 1,000 of those surveys to see, out of these 10, do you click any of these boxes? We could probably all be diagnosed with 50 or 60 things, really. But it really bothered me to think about this whole binge eating thing. And I know a lot of people in this circle, and I've met a lot of good friends that have struggled with all types of eating disorders. And I have a video called Eating Disorder or Disordered Eating. And a lot of times the eating disorder is the catalyst to it, the antecedent to an eating disorder. What causes the eating disorder is a desperate attempt to be in control. And so you think, I'm going to control what I'm eating. And even though I can't control all these things around me, that is one thing I can control. And that was never my video, Eating Disorder versus Disordered Eating. I just talk about how eating disorders really stem from psychological issues. Disordered eating really stems from addiction. So I asked the Lord, I prayed the other night, and I said, I was just feeling scared of my own behaviors and not wanting to commit to this life and lifestyle for fear of binging again, for fear of failing again over and over and over and over and over. And I prayed to God, do I have binge eating disorder? And he spoke to my heart like he's done many, many times. And I can tell you verbatim what I felt in my spirit, what I felt him tell me. Do I hear it in my ears? No, I know it in my heart. And he said, you don't have binge eating disorder any more than an alcoholic has alcohol drinking disorder. Meaning, the binging is a result of the addiction. Period. Franklin was acting up the other night, and I knew he was exhausted. He was being very disrespectful to me, and I sat down with him on a little step upstairs in the new part where we've added on, and I said, Franklin, I want to talk to you about this. I've noticed some disrespect tonight, but I know it stems from lack of sleep. So I'm not mad at you for it. I just want you to get more sleep. And I said, what kind of things have a stem? And he said, a plant. I said, that's exactly right. Your behavior, this disrespect, this back talk, and all these things that I've been noticing in the last 24 hours, these are the leaves. I don't even care to focus on them. I don't even care to focus on the leaves. Let's look at the stem. Let's look at the root, right? He said, yeah, that really made sense to him. I said, okay, well, I totally forgive you. And I said, can you think of a couple things? He said, yeah, I can. And he listened, and then he apologized. I said, I forgive you. Those are the leaves. Let's focus on the stem, and the stem is lack of sleep. Well, the binge eating are the leaves. Let's don't focus on that. Let's don't be scared of it. And what I was doing in the month of December is focusing on it. I was trying to never have that happen again. And if it meant I had to eat the very thing, consume the very thing that I'm addicted to a little bit every day, well, I was willing. If it meant I had to have an ice cream cone and some cookies every day, so be it. But I realized I'm scared of that behavior. I'm scared of that in me. Satan is the accuser, and he's going to accuse us of all sorts of things. He's going to tell us how awful we are and how diseased we are and how different we are from everyone else, and none of that's true. So when God told me that, it just freed me from that fear, because I was like, oh my goodness, of course, this stems from addiction. And when I want to make sure that there's no root of fear. So I thought through it a little bit more, and I thought, and I was explaining this to Greg, and mid-sentence I was like, Greg, it's kind of like having this irrational fear that, like, if I fall off a cliff, I'm going to just land in a big pile on the ground because I can't fly. And then literally, as these words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, wait a minute. That's not an irrational fear. That's a very rational fear. I should have a very rational fear of landing in a big pile if I fell off a cliff or like jumped off a roof. That's not an irrational fear. That's a rational fear. And so what the Lord is showing me is that I should have a very rational, not irrational, not fear-inducing, not scared, I am not scared of falling off cliffs because I don't go near them. That's what it is right there. He's telling me, Emily, you should have a very rational fear of binging. Because if you get tangled up with sugar and flour, you're going to. Now, notice I don't binge on celery stalks or chicken breasts or, gosh, there's only like 3 things I don't binge on. What's the third? Beets. Beats me. Anyways, you get my point. We're going to binge on the things that our brains are addicted to. We're going to consume more than we wanted to. Yes, if you checked all the boxes, would you call it binge eating disorder? Well, yeah, I mean, let's just don't worry about that. People that have alcoholism don't even consider or care whether they also have alcohol binge drinking disorder. Of course they do binge drink on alcohol because they're addicted to it. Binge eating disorder, unless somebody could enlighten me and tell me in the comments below. Okay, maybe it's a whole different thing. Maybe binge eating disorder is its own thing. I used to work with a little girl that had pica. I've worked with many kids that have eating disorders where they would eat things that aren't even edible, be it dirt or, we had to keep everything out of this girl's mouth because she wanted to consume it. The only thing I want to binge on is sugar and flour, and that's because I'm addicted to it. So I feel free from the fear. And if I'm free from the fear, then I'm free from the enemy. And I pray to God that He would convict. Jill and I actually prayed together that the Lord would convict us, give us Holy Spirit conviction to be committed to this, just like we are our marriages, where we know the longer we do it, the better it gets. The longer we're committed to it, the sweeter it is. The history that Greg and I have together, there's a picture up there of us on our first date. There's no one on the planet I'd rather be with, because there's no one on the planet that I have these memories with. And the same goes with this way of eating. I'll be a whole lot less tempted to step outside of this if there's truly the buy-in that this is my path to freedom. And there is at this point. This past month, December, denial, I was thinking, I don't buy it. I don't buy that this is as bad as cyanide. I don't buy that this is as bad as cocaine or heroin. Yes, it's 8 times more addictive, but no, it's not 8 times more destructive. Well, that is debatable, because whatever substance we're addicted to, if it's lighting our brain up, I promise you it's about the only thing lighting our brain up. And when I was in it the other day, Greg and I went shopping for new vehicles. And while we're at the car, we've never in 25 years shopped for a new vehicle. We did the other night. And while we were at the dealership, shopping for new vehicles, mind you, all I could notice was the bowls of candy. It wasn't all I could notice. I could notice a couple of vehicles, but the bowls of candy. And I was like, I want those. It was like a few days before Christmas. Hey, what are you up to?
I'm gonna go pee.
I was going to delete that. I'm not. There you go. Rare appearance of Greg. Here we were shopping for new vehicles, and there was like cookies and cakes and all this stuff that you could tell like the employees brought in. And the guy was kind of joking. He was like, "Do you want some red velvet cake?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." I really do. No, seriously, I do. And he's like going to get other managers because we had questions about this vehicle. And like while I'm like eyeing the sugar and flour, and I'm thinking, don't do it, Emily. Don't do it, Emily. You're going to embarrass yourself, because this is probably just for the employees. And you're going to walk over there. No one will tell you no, because they're going to be nice. And then you're going to leave, and they're going to be like, do you see that girl helping herself to our employee? I don't even know what. The only thing that stopped me was thinking, no, this is not like socially, these are not good social skills. Emily, don't eat their cake, Emily. Oh, man. And then there was like bowls of candy, and I was like, well, that's clearly for customers. And I was like, Emily, do not start like asking, okay, is the 2021, is the 2020, while I'm unwrapping, and then just like scarf it. What? Like, if I saw someone doing that to me while I was trying to talk to them, I'd be like, I'm sorry. Are you hungry? Are you hungry? Are you safe with this man? Blink twice if you need food. Are you okay? I mean, I could have just tore into some of that Christmas chocolate. Standing right there talking to the salesman, the manager. We had to get this. My husband had questions about these diesel trucks. You guys, when we're in the throes of our addiction, it's just all consuming. So Jill and I have come a long way in a very short period of time. Here's where we currently are. I don't like to say full circle. I don't like to say square one, but in this case, it is sort of like I've learned about sugar and flour, tossed it all out the window for 3 weeks, thinking, you know what I'll do? I'll just take everything I've learned and then I'll just have a little bit every day. It's hilarious. But full circle, here we are. Sugar and flour are addictive. I am addicted to them, and I feel a new, very profound sense of freedom. Freedom from the fear of failing, and freedom from my own behaviors that I do aim to understand, and I am pretty sure I get it. I'm addicted to sugar and flour, so I'd be better off to abstain from them. And I'm going to consider myself as zero carb as possible. That's where I'm at. And that is 99% carnivore. Please enjoy these conversations between Jill and myself over the past couple days. This will be CarniVLOG number 37. I'm going to get back at it, taking care of these 7 kids and 6 dogs. I will be back in touch. I look forward to someday making a CarniVLOG number 38. But for now, I'm going to wrap up 2022 like this. We've come a long way. I've come a long way since October 24th, 2019, where my eyes were opened to the fact that what we're dealing with when we're dealing with sugar and flour, and carbohydrates for that matter, are things that really, for a lot of us, keep us off track and out of whack. I love you dearly. We'll talk again soon. Bye. Okay, late night bacon and eggs with my daughters. I'm going to have 2 pieces and 2 eggs. The only other thing I had today was that burger and mayonnaise and mustard that I showed you. Jill, I don't think there's a better word than safe. I feel safe eating from home, meaning I know what I'm eating. I know I'm not lighting my brain up in all the wrong ways. I know that I'm not going to walk out the door and have to make a million decisions. I have so much going on right now personally. This just really, really simplifies things in a way that is feeling very profound. Jill, that was perfection. It was the perfect amount of the most delicious food. It probably cost next to nothing. I ate it with this little girl on my left side, and then Mary sitting here in my lap. Mary ate some, Claire ate some, and Mary even came over here, and this was on clean because I've been cleaning the kitchen, and she switched it to cuddle. Bacon and eggs right here in my home at night. This is good stuff, Jill. Good night. Love you. Jill, okay, speaking of unhelpful mentalities. So I'm in there, put my contacts in, getting ready to get in the shower, thinking, oh, okay, I already had bacon and eggs. I should cook a bunch of burgers. I should eat a bunch of burgers before I go over there. What? Jill, hold on, time out. Time out. Again, I don't think we should, this is kind of a new revelation, a new perspective here. I do not think we should chew and swallow things so that we don't chew and swallow other things. That is fear-filled, not faith-filled. What am I thinking? I don't need to stuff myself randomly, arbitrarily before I go next door. If I get hungry, I can come home and eat. I should eat when I'm hungry, whether I'm going to Nana's house or not stuff myself preemptively. That's out of whack. Now, would I necessarily want to go up there starving? Well, no, that wouldn't be very smart, but I don't want to go anywhere starving. I don't want to be at Walmart starving. I don't want to be at the mall starving. I don't want to be at Nana's house starving. I don't want to be starving. So if I'm hungry, I'll eat before I go to Nana's. And I'll make sense of the fact that, oh, I'm going to be up there for a while, so if I want to go ahead and, if I'm hungry, I should probably go ahead and eat now because I won't be able to eat again for a couple hours. Not, I'm going to chew and swallow so that when I get up there, I don't chew and swallow. You and I both know that backfires anyways. What have I done 1,000 times? Stuffed myself before I went to some party and still stuffed myself there. It doesn't keep me from stuffing myself. Anyways, I know you get my point. Yes, it makes good sense to not allow ourselves to be both surrounded by sugar and flour and tempted by it, but that's sort of like saying, I don't know, I'm getting ready to go be surrounded by a bunch of good-looking men. I should kiss all over Greg before I get there because I know myself well enough to know I'm going to lose my mind around those men. Well, either God is doing a miraculous work right now or he's not, and I believe we are to claim that he is. Amen. Amen and amen. Hey girl, look at me in my apron because I eat at home. I told Greg, I said, isn't it interesting? We left church. I said, not that anything's open today, but I said, how many times have I said to you, where do you want to go? Let's go out to eat. You want to go out to eat? And half the time he doesn't. He wants to go home. And I'm like, oh, then I'll go. I'll drop you off. Kids, who wants to go? Who wants to go? My brain is lighting up because I'm going to sit there and get a hit at a restaurant. But anyways, I just wanted to tell you, I came home. I had a little bit of cheese, cut it off my little block that says Mama on the bag. And then I was kind of starting to look around for, whatever else I was going to have, and I realized I was out of pork rinds. So I thought, I'm not going to eat these, but I was like, all right, I want some deterrent here. And I just looked at these Tostitos, these tortilla chips, and there it is. There's my deterrent. Look at those carbohydrates, 19 grams just for 7 chips, and I don't want 7, I want 75. So Jill, hang on. Oh boy, I don't want to have to start this over. Okay, Jill, I gotta make this quick. So this is what I think we need to be thinking. I was telling Greg, I've always wondered, am I carnivore or am I zero carb? Because mayonnaise, we've talked about this, that is not carnivore. That is not from an animal. Jill, I think the simplest thing for you and I to think is we are zero carb. Okay? Which means in order to get full and satiated, we're going to have to eat, 99% animal product. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. I just like making that distinction. I like making sense of all of this. I like wrapping my mind around it. I like definition. I like knowing, what are we doing? What are we shooting for? Are we carnivore? Are we zero carb? I've always wondered that because, anyways, you get my point back.